Warning: this video contains details of real crime cases. Watch with caution. If you're a fan of true crime investigations and want to follow more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any case. In the quiet suburbs of Oak Ridge, Virginia, a picturesque town known for its tree-lined streets and tight-knit community, the Hartley family seemed to embody the American dream. At the center of this family was Nathaniel Hartley, a 52-year-old real estate mogul whose name had become synonymous with success in the local property market. Nathaniel's imposing figure was a familiar sight around Oak Ridge, often spotted cruising in his midnight blue luxury sedan, ferrying potential buyers to high-end properties. With salt and pepper hair and a charismatic smile, he exuded confidence that put clients at ease and closed deals effortlessly. His academic background in finance from the prestigious Wharton School, coupled with over 2 decades of experience in real estate, had earned him a reputation as the go-to agent for discerning homebuyers in Northern Virginia. The Hartley residence, a stately colonial revival home on Maple Grove Lane, stood as a testament to Nathaniel's professional success. Its meticulously maintained gardens and grand facade were often the subject of admiration among neighbors and passers-by alike. Inside lived Nathaniel's wife of 15 years, Evelyn Hartley, the well-respected principal of Oak Ridge High School, known for her innovative educational programs and community outreach initiatives. Completing the family picture was Caleb, Nathaniel's 23-year-old stepson from Evelyn's previous marriage. A senior at nearby Georgetown University, Caleb was studying environmental science and was active in various campus organizations. To the outside world, the Hartleys appear to be the perfect blended family: successful, educated, and deeply involved in their community. However, beneath this veneer of suburban perfection, tensions simmered. Nathaniel's long work hours and frequent business dinners had begun to strain his relationship with Evelyn. Neighbors occasionally overheard heated arguments emanating from the Hartley home, their voices carrying across manicured lawns in the still of the night. Caleb's relationship with his stepfather was equally complex. While Nathaniel had provided for Caleb's education and offered him opportunities that many young adults could only dream of, there was an undercurrent of resentment that ran deep. Caleb struggled with the pressure to live up to Nathaniel's expectations and the constant comparisons to his stepfather's success. As spring turned to summer in 2022, the cracks in the Hartley family's facade began to widen. Nathaniel was spending more time away from home, citing a booming real estate market as his excuse. Evelyn threw herself into her work at the high school, organizing late-night meetings and weekend events. Caleb, home for the summer break, found himself caught in the middle of his parents' increasingly distant relationship. Little did the residents of Oak Ridge know that behind the Hartleys' picture-perfect life lay a web of secrets, lies, and suppressed emotions that would soon unravel in the most tragic of ways. The events that were about to unfold would not only shatter the illusion of the Hartley family's perfect life, but would also send shockwaves through the entire community, forcing neighbors and friends to question how well they truly knew those living right next door. As the sultry Virginia summer reached its peak, the stage was set for a confrontation that would forever change the lives of the Hartleys and the town of Oak Ridge. The idyllic facade was about to crumble, revealing the dark undercurrents that had been flowing beneath the surface all along. On the sweltering afternoon of July 15, 2022, the tranquility of Maple Grove Lane was shattered by a blood-curdling scream. At approximately 3:45 p.m., Evelyn Hartley returned home earlier than usual, her arms laden with groceries for a dinner party she had planned for that evening. As she entered the house, the eerie silence that greeted her immediately set her on edge. "Nathaniel," she called out, her voice echoing through the seemingly empty rooms. The lack of response sent a chill down her spine despite the oppressive heat outside. Dropping the grocery bags on the kitchen counter, Evelyn began a cautious exploration of the house. Her search led her to the basement door, slightly ajar, an unusual sight, as Nathaniel always insisted on keeping it locked. With trepidation, she descended the stairs, the old wood creaking under her feet. The musty smell of the basement was overshadowed by a metallic odor that grew stronger with each step. What Evelyn discovered in the basement would be forever seared into her memory. There, sprawled on the cold concrete floor, lay the lifeless body of Nathaniel Hartley. The scene was one of unimaginable violence. Overturned furniture, shattered glass, and dark stains marring the floor told a tale of a fierce struggle. Nathaniel's body bore the brutal evidence of a savage attack. His once immaculate suit was torn and bloodied, and a leather belt was wrapped tightly around his neck. His eyes, usually so full of charm and confidence, now stared blankly at the ceiling. Evelyn's scream pierced the quiet afternoon, alerting neighbors who quickly called 911. Within minutes, the peaceful street was transformed into a chaotic crime scene. Police cruisers and ambulances converged on the Hartley residence, their flashing lights casting a surreal glow in the fading daylight. Detective Sophia Reeves, a seasoned investigator with the Oak Ridge Police Department, arrived on the scene at 4:10 p.m. With 15 years of experience under her belt, Reeves had seen her fair share of gruesome crime scenes, but the brutality of this one gave her pause. As the forensics team meticulously combed through the basement, photographing evidence and collecting samples, Detective Reeves began her preliminary assessment. The signs of struggle were evident: a knocked-over bookshelf, a broken vase, and scratch marks on the victim's arms suggested Nathaniel had fought fiercely for his life. The murder weapon, the leather belt still wound tightly around Nathaniel's neck, was a personal item, suggesting a crime of passion rather than a premeditated attack. This detail would prove crucial in the investigation that followed. Outside, curious neighbors gathered behind the yellow police tape, their shocked whispers creating a low hum of speculation. The Hartleys had always seemed so perfect. What could have led to such a violent end? As the sun set on Oak Ridge that evening, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns, the community grappled with the realization that a killer walked among them. The murder of Nathaniel Hartley not only robbed the town of a prominent citizen, but also shattered the illusion of safety that had long been taken for granted. Detective Reeves, standing on the Hartleys' front porch, knew that the coming days would be crucial. As she watched the coroner's van pull away with Nathaniel's body, she steeled herself for the complex investigation ahead. Little did she know that this case would unravel a web of secrets that would shake Oak Ridge to its very core. As dawn broke over Oak Ridge on July 16, 2022, Detective Sophia Reeves and her team were already deep into their investigation of Nathaniel Hartley's murder. The quiet suburb had transformed overnight, with police tape cordoning off the Hartley residence and forensic teams meticulously combing through every inch of the property. The first breakthrough came when investigators uncovered Nathaniel's cell phone, hidden beneath a stack of papers in his home office. As they delved into his call logs and text messages, a complex web of relationships began to emerge. It appeared that the charismatic real estate mogul had been leading a double life, one that extended far beyond his picture-perfect family facade. Detective Reeves pored over the data, her brow furrowed in concentration. It seems Mr. Hartley had several, let's call them complicated relationships, she muttered to her partner, Detective Marcus Chun. The phone records revealed frequent communications with multiple women, as well as some questionable business contacts. One name that repeatedly appeared in the logs was that of Veronica Blackwood, a local interior designer. When questioned, Ms. Blackwood reluctantly admitted to a long-standing affair with Nathaniel. He promised he was going to leave his wife, she said, tears welling in her eyes. We were supposed to start a new life together. This revelation cast a new light on the case. Could Evelyn Hartley have discovered her husband's infidelity? The detectives revisited their initial interview with the widow, pressing her on the state of her marriage. Evelyn's composure cracked slightly as she confessed to suspecting Nathaniel's unfaithfulness, but denied any involvement in his death. Her alibi of being at a school board meeting at the time of the murder checked out, temporarily shifting the focus of the investigation. As the days passed, the team uncovered more about Nathaniel's business dealings. Financial records showed a pattern of questionable transactions, hinting at possible fraud or money laundering. Detective Chun discovered links to a notorious local developer, raising questions about whether Nathaniel's death could be connected to his professional life rather than his personal indiscretions. A week into the investigation, attention turned to Caleb, Nathaniel's stepson. Initial interviews had painted him as a dutiful, if somewhat distant, family member. However, as detectives dug deeper, they uncovered a history of tension between Caleb and his stepfather. Caleb's roommate at Georgetown, Tyler Simmons, provided a crucial piece of information. Caleb and his stepdad had this huge blow-up about a month ago, Tyler revealed during questioning. Caleb came back to the dorm in a rage, saying he couldn't take it anymore, that Nathaniel was ruining everything. This new information prompted a more intensive interrogation of Caleb. Under the harsh lights of the interview room, the young man's cool demeanor began to crack. He spoke of years of resentment, of feeling like he could never measure up to Nathaniel's expectations. He was always there, always judging, always making me feel like I wasn't good enough, Caleb said, his voice trembling with emotion. As July drew to a close, the investigation had uncovered a tangled web of motives. Was Nathaniel Hartley's death the result of a business deal gone wrong? A crime of passion stemming from his infidelity? Or had the pressure within his own family finally reached a breaking point? Detective Reeves stood before the evidence board, its surface now covered with photos, documents, and red string connecting various elements of the case. She knew they were close to a breakthrough, but the final piece of the puzzle remained elusive. Little did she know that the key to solving the case was hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered in the very place where it all began. As August 1st, 2022, dawned on Oak Ridge, the investigation into Nathaniel Hartley's murder seemed to have reached an impasse. Detective Sophia Reeves and her team had been working tirelessly for over 2 weeks, yet a conclusive breakthrough remained elusive. However, fate had other plans for that sweltering summer day. At precisely 9:17 a.m., a junior officer named Eric Donovan made a discovery that would change the course of the investigation. While re-examining the crime scene in the Hartley's basement, Donovan noticed a small, almost imperceptible gap in the wood paneling near the ceiling. His curiosity piqued. He carefully pried open the panel, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, nestled among dust and cobwebs, sat a small, high-definition camera. The device was cleverly positioned to capture most of the basement area. Donovan's heart raced as he realized the implications of his find. "Detective Reeves," he called out, his voice echoing through the house. "I think you need to see this." Within minutes, the basement was a flurry of activity. Forensic technicians carefully extracted the camera, taking care not to damage any potential fingerprints. As they examined the device, they discovered it was still operational and had been recording on a loop. The tension in the air was palpable as Detective Reeves and her team huddled around a monitor in the mobile command center parked outside the Hartley residence. They began to review the footage, fast, forwarding through days of mundane activity until they reached July 15th, the day of the murder. At 2:43 p.m., the video showed Nathaniel Hartley entering the basement, pacing nervously. At 2:55 p.m., Caleb appeared at the top of the stairs. What unfolded next left the entire investigative team in stunned silence. The footage captured a heated argument between stepfather and stepson. Nathaniel's face was contorted with anger as he shouted accusations at Caleb, berating him for his perceived failures and threatening to cut him off financially. Caleb, usually composed, seemed to snap under the weight of years of emotional abuse. In a blur of motion, Caleb lunged at Nathaniel. The ensuing struggle was violent and chaotic, with both men grappling and crashing into furniture. In a moment of desperation, Caleb grabbed Nathaniel's own belt and wrapped it around his stepfather's neck. The video showed Caleb's face, a mask of rage and fear, as he pulled the belt tighter and tighter until Nathaniel's body went limp. The room fell silent as the video ended. Detective Reeves broke the silence, her voice steady but tinged with disbelief. "Get units to Georgetown now. Bring Caleb Hartley in for questioning." Within hours, Caleb was seated in the Oak Ridge Police Department's interrogation room. When confronted with the video evidence, the young man's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Tears streaming down his face, he confessed to the killing, describing years of emotional manipulation and psychological abuse at the hands of his stepfather. "I never meant to kill him," Caleb sobbed. "I just wanted him to stop, to listen to me for once. But he kept pushing and pushing, and I couldn't take it anymore." As Detective Reeves listened to Caleb's confession, she felt a complex mix of emotions. The case was solved, but there were no winners here. Only a family torn apart by secrets, lies, and unresolved trauma. The discovery of the hidden camera and Caleb's subsequent confession marked a turning point not just in the investigation, but in the lives of everyone involved. The truth had finally come to light, but its revelations would cast long shadows over the community of Oak Ridge for years to come. In the wake of Caleb Hartley's confession, the quiet town of Oak Ridge found itself grappling with the aftermath of a tragedy that had shaken its very foundations. The case that had begun as a shocking murder quickly evolved into a complex narrative of family dysfunction, hidden abuse, and the devastating consequences of long-buried secrets. On August 15, 2022, exactly 1 month after Nathaniel Hartley's death, Caleb Hartley stood before Judge Miranda Holbrook in the Oak Ridge County Courthouse. The young man, once full of promise and ambition, now appeared gaunt and hollow-eyed as he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. The courtroom was packed, with members of the community straining to catch a glimpse of the concluded drama that had captivated their town for weeks. Judge Holbrook, known for her fair but firm approach, listened intently as both the prosecution and defense presented their cases. The prosecution painted a picture of a calculating killer who had snapped under the pressure of living up to his stepfather's expectations. The defense, however, argued for leniency, citing years of emotional abuse and manipulation that had pushed Caleb to his breaking point. In a poignant moment, Evelyn Hartley took the stand. Her testimony was a heart-wrenching account of a family torn apart by hidden strife. "I failed them both," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I saw the signs, but I chose to ignore them. Now I've lost my husband and my son." After careful deliberation, Judge Holbrook sentenced Caleb to 15 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 10 years. As the gavel fell, a collective sigh seemed to ripple through the courtroom. The legal chapter of this tragic story had come to a close, but its effects would linger in Oak Ridge for years to come. In the months that followed, the community struggled to reconcile the image of the perfect Hartley family with the dark reality that had been revealed. The case sparked important conversations about mental health, family dynamics, and the pressure to maintain appearances in suburban America. Detective Sophia Reeves, who had led the investigation, found herself reflecting deeply on the case. "In all my years on the force, I've never seen a case quite like this," she remarked during a press conference. "It serves as a stark reminder that we often don't know what's happening behind closed doors, even in the most seemingly perfect homes." The Hartley case also led to concrete changes in Oak Ridge. The local high school, where Evelyn had once been principal, implemented new programs focused on emotional intelligence and conflict resolution. The real estate community, shaken by the revelations about Nathaniel's business practices, pushed for greater transparency and ethical guidelines. As for the Hartley home on Maple Grove Lane, it stood empty, a silent testament to the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. Despite several attempts to sell the property, potential buyers were deterred by its grim history. The once immaculate lawn grew wild, and whispers of the house being haunted began to circulate among the neighborhood children. 1 year after the murder, on a warm July evening, a small group gathered in the local park to remember Nathaniel Hartley. The ceremony was not a celebration of his life, but rather a somber reflection on the complexities of human nature and the importance of compassion and understanding. As the sun set over Oak Ridge, casting long shadows across the gathered crowd, there was a sense that the town would never be quite the same. The Hartley case had stripped away the veneer of suburban perfection, revealing the vulnerable humanity that lay beneath. It served as a powerful reminder that behind every front door, every manicured lawn, and every seemingly perfect family, there may be struggles and stories yet untold. As the second anniversary of Nathaniel Hartley's death approached, the town of Oak Ridge had settled into a new normal. The sensational murder that had once dominated headlines and dinner table conversations had faded into the background, becoming a cautionary tale whispered among longtime residents and a morbid curiosity for newcomers. In the state penitentiary, Caleb Hartley had just marked his second year behind bars. The once promising environmental science student now spent his days in the prison library, poring over legal texts and psychology books. His case had become a subject of study in criminal justice classes across the country, dissected by students and experts alike for its complex interplay of family dynamics, hidden abuse, and the thin line between victim and perpetrator. Evelyn Hartley, now living in a small apartment on the outskirts of town, had resigned from her position as principal and dedicated herself to advocacy work. She became a frequent speaker at conferences on domestic abuse and family trauma, sharing her story as a cautionary tale of the dangers of silence and the importance of recognizing subtle signs of abuse. The Hartley residence on Maple Grove Lane, which had stood empty for 2 years, was finally sold at a fraction of its original value. The new owners, a young couple unaware of the property's history, began extensive renovations, eager to breathe new life into the house. As workers tore down walls and ripped up floorboards, they unknowingly erased the last physical traces of the tragedy that had unfolded there. Detective Sophia Reeves, who had led the investigation, found her career trajectory forever altered by the case. She became a sought-after consultant, lecturing at police academies about the importance of looking beyond surface appearances in domestic cases. The hidden camera that had cracked the case open became a central point in her presentations, a stark reminder that crucial evidence can often be hiding in plain sight. In the broader community, the ripple effects of the Hartley case continued to be felt. The local high school's emotional intelligence program, implemented in the wake of the tragedy, showed promising results in improving student well-being and reducing incidents of bullying. The real estate industry in Oak Ridge, once tainted by the revelations about Nathaniel's unethical practices, had undergone a rigorous overhaul, with new transparency measures put in place to rebuild public trust. As summer once again blanketed Oak Ridge in humid heat, a documentary crew arrived in town. They were working on a series exploring high-profile suburban crimes, with the Hartley case as their centerpiece. Their presence stirred up mixed emotions among the residents. Some welcomed the opportunity to share their perspectives, while others felt it was time to let the past rest. The documentary's interviews painted a complex portrait of a community forever changed. Longtime neighbors spoke of the lingering unease, the newfound skepticism about the perfect facades of their fellow residents. Young adults who had known Caleb in high school grappled with reconciling their memories of a quiet, intelligent classmate with the man who now sat in a prison cell. Perhaps the most poignant interview came from Tyler Simmons, Caleb's former college roommate. "I keep thinking about that night when Caleb came back to our dorm, raging about his stepdad," Tyler said, his eyes distant. "If I had just said something then, reached out somehow, maybe things would have turned out differently." As the documentary crew packed up their equipment and left Oak Ridge, they left behind a town still wrestling with the legacy of the Hartley case. The tragic tale of Nathaniel, Evelyn, and Caleb Hartley had become more than just a sensational crime story. It stood as a stark reminder of the complexity of human relationships, the weight of unspoken words, and the potential for tragedy that can lurk behind even the most picture-perfect facades. In Oak Ridge and beyond, the Hartley case would continue to resonate, a somber footnote in the annals of suburban America, prompting uncomfortable but necessary conversations about family, appearances, and the often blurry line between victim and perpetrator.